Hello guys. Welcome to my C# programming tutorial. Today I'm gonna show you how to make a Hello World application. Let's begin by creating our console application in Visual Studio. So here we have our main function where we will write our Hello World program. Let's delete this placeholder code, we don't need it. So the first thing we need is a console class, so we can write to the console. Let's create it and name it call console. First, let's make this class public and sealed, because we don't want anyone copying our console. Then, we're going to make a constructor for our class. Now we have talking about what our console should have. It definitely needs a way to add methods to it. It in the best way would be to create an interface named console method. First thing, we're going to add this line to the top of our file. This will allow us to use the call console class without having to write the full namespace. And now we can add our parameters and methods. The name property will be used to identify our method. The console property will be used to access the call console class. And the run method will be used to run our method. Let's now return to our call console class and add a list of our console methods. We will also add a constructor to initialize our list. Okay, let's quickly make a method to find a method by name. This will be useful later. This works by looping through all of our methods and checking if the name matches. If it does, we return the method. If not, we return null. The question mark after the return type means that the method can return null. This is because we don't know if the method will be found or not. Alright, let's create our first method. We're going to create a method that prints a message to the console. Let's call it write method. First, we're going to create a record. This is a new feature in C# 9.0. It's basically a class that is immutable and as a constructor. We're going to pass our call console class to the constructor. Next, we're going to implement our console method interface. This will allow us to use our method in our call console class. Now we can add our name property. We're going to set it to write so we can find it later. And finally, we can add our run method. This will be used to run our method. We're going to pass it an array of objects. This is because we don't know what type of objects we will be passing. So before we can write our run method, we need a way to call built-in methods from it. We're going to create an invoke method inside our call console. But before we can do that, we first have to create a new dictionary for our built-in methods. We're going to call it built-in methods. This method will first check if the method is in our built-in methods dictionary. If it is, we will invoke it. If not, we will search for it in console class using reflection and link. We will then check if the number of arguments matches the number of parameters. If it does, we will save the method to our dictionary and invoke it. If not, we will throw an exception. Now we can add our run method. This method will simply invoke the write method from our console class. We're going to pass it the arguments we received. I also made it in line, because it's only one line. We can now add a shortcut to our call console class. It will just simply run our write method. Let's now add our write line method. This will be the same as our write method, but it will add a new line at the end. This method will first create a string with all of our arguments. It will then add a new line at the end and invoke our write method, passing the string as argument. Let's also add a shortcut for this method. Finally, to add more cool things, let's create a readline method. This method will first check if we have any arguments. If we do, it will invoke our write method, passing the arguments as argument. This is so we can print a message before reading the input. Then it will invoke the readline method from our console class. And that's it. We have now created a call console class. Let's quickly add a shortcut and test it. We also shouldn't forget to initialize our methods in constructor. First, let's add a using statement for our call console class. Now let's create a new instance of our console. And now, let's test our methods. Let's run our program and see if it works. And it works. We have now created a call console class. We can now use it in our projects. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. If you want to see more tutorials like this, let me know in the comments. See you next time.